not afford to live by it with the present power arrangement. That after he had disgraced himself with the mismanagement of this religion, the camel boy began to struggle. This camel boy asked for reform. And had he gotten reform, there would have been a new religious arrangement in the world based on reform. But failing to get reform, he asked for a new religion. This new religion was Islam. The Africans, thinking that by joining Islam, they would get the Romans off of their back. And they were right, they did. But the Arabs replaced the Romans on their backs. I explained the African political and cultural naivete going back 3,000 years. But now, with the decline of the second golden age in Egypt, with the rise of Islam, a third golden age in the inner West Africa, called the Western Sudan, began to develop with independent African states such as Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. And while the Arabs and the Africans pushed the Europeans back into Europe, Europe eventually began to rise again during the Crusades, another form of European fakery. It had nothing to do with spirituality. And after the drain on their treasure, the Crusades, then the drain on their treasure with the famines and plagues, then they discovered information preserved by the Africans at the University of Salamanca in Spain. And they discovered longitude and latitude again and learned how to put ships at sea again. And once they put ships at sea again, they searched for spices and sweets of Asia, but discovered Africa en route and started the slave trade. And then, starting the slave trade, they needed a rationale for what they had to do to the Africans or wanted to do. So the Pope, in an argument between Spain and Portugal, said, you are both authorized to reduce to servitude all infidel people.
That's right.
They declared the African an infidel, outside of humanity, outside of consideration. Dehumanized him, therefore clearing their conscience for the slave trade.
That's right.
They did not want part of Africa. They wanted it all. Now, the scattering of the Africans throughout the so-called New World, the development of the plantation system in the Americas, in the Caribbean islands. Africa was without spokesman, and I dealt with that. 19th century, when in the Caribbean islands, and the free man in the Caribbean islands, the free man in America, with Frederick Douglass and Highland Garnett, Samuel Ringo Ward, dynamic ministers of the first half of the 19th century, the first half of the 19th century in the Caribbean islands, and in Brazil, where the Africans had revolted and brought into being two states, Palmeiras, Bahia, that now we see Africans away from home trying to establish their own new world order. And this went on until throughout the end of the 19th century. The establishment of independent black churches, independent black institutions, the Africans fighting colonial wars to restore their country. So collectively throughout the African world, the Africans were making a statement about a new world order. And that new world order was predicated on the concept of the restoration of his nationhood and his manhood and womanhood. So in the United States, that also brought into being the Negro Convention movements, the Amina conferences. We are the meetingest organization in this people. All the people. Organized around almost anything. But we came into the 20th century with great voices trying to bring about a new world order for African people, and that is to put African people together after that Holocaust. And putting them together, we started an argument that needed not to be an argument at all, whether we should follow Du Bois, whether we should follow Booker T. Washington. And we forgot that both of them were right.
That's right. Yeah.
Both of them were right in different ways, given their time, given the environment that produced them. So in the middle of the 20th century, with the civil rights movement began to develop, the rise of Martin Luther King, the rise of the African independence explosion, with the aftermath of the 5th Pan-African Congress in Manchester, England, 1945, is planned the African freedom explosion. Africans had begun now to assert themselves for an African world order. They were not asking, as Du Bois and others had asked previously, let us have the kind of education that will equip us for independence. They were saying now, we've got that kind of education. We want it now.
Teach.
This ultimately led to the independence of Ghana. Whites got frightened because they couldn't control the mental wealth of Africa. That was the basic wealth holding up Western economy.
That's right.
So they had to start destroying African nations one after one, beginning with the instigation to destroy Nkrumah, Lumumba, and from the top of North Africa, they had to destroy Arab Pan-Africanists like Ben Bella and Nasser.
Yeah.
Until today, you don't have a single Pan-African head of state any place in Africa. You don't have a single African head of state running an African nation in an African manner. You don't have a single African who would dare to worship an African traditional god in public. They have African bodies and European minds.
Teach. That's right.
The idea was to express the need now to study those giants of the 19th century who did express the desire for an African world order based on African values, not European values and European needs, and to seriously study whether Europe is worth following, inasmuch as Europeans are now turning on Europeans.
Right.
And I asked them to seriously study a political opportunist and a Johnny-come-lately called Karl Marx. And I suggested there might be some division between the Karl Marxists and the Groucho Marxists. There's nothing that no one has ever planned our destiny, and any people who think another people going to plan their road to power are fools.
Yes, sir. Yes, right.
Because no one has a vested interest in planning the liberation of another people if by being liberated they gain control of the wealth-producing resources of their country that they, other people, formerly control. This, in essence, is what I was trying to get across. That freedom is something you take with your own hands.
Teach, brother.
You control it.
That's right.
With your own hands.
That's right, brother.
You do not leave to other people alliances.
That's right.
You first make an alliance with yourself. You make it based on what is convenient. And when it failed to